Shemai. Today it's an absolutely beautiful autumn day and I'm sat out on my children's trampoline in the garden because it's a great time of year for mushrooms, and today we're going to have a look at the field mushroom, or Agaricus, campestris, or in Welsh, madarch. And they're really common at this time of year. It's been great weather for it. It's been warm and it's been quite damp, so they're springing up all over the place, and they'll grow in pastures and meadowlands and like here on lawns. And they'll appear, like I say, it's now late September, it's close to October, and they'll appear in late summer, early autumn. And quite often they'll grow in large numbers. Now these, like I say, are underneath our trampoline, and there's only a couple there, but we'll take a closer look now. I'll show you where they are. These field mushrooms are really common at this time of year, and their cap can reach about sort of 3 to 10 centimetres across. Sometimes, like everything, the measurements aren't exactly perfect, but they can be a bit bigger, they can be a bit smaller. And the cap starts off, I can just see one down here, see if we can open that up. The cap starts off as this domed, I can feel another one in through there, look, there's a little tiny one coming up. And it starts off as this domed sort of shape that you can see by there. And as it gets older and it grows, it expands fully. So as time goes on, it expands quite nice, because these kind of show how it changes. And it expands fully and becomes more flattened, as you can see with the oldest of them here. And it becomes, as you can see, they're quite a flattened shape. And they generally sort of a creamy colour or a white colour like this. And they can be scaly or smooth. Now the stem of them, and I'll see if we can get under to see the stem, can be about 3 to 10 centimetres long. It's about 1 to 2 centimetres wide. And sometimes, you can just see it under there. There's your stem. And sometimes it's like with the cap, as it grows from this little sort of dome shape, it can be left with a little frill around the stem. And I'm just wondering if you can see it just in front of my finger there. It's like a little frill around the stem. I'm not sure. Oh yes, you can see it on the bigger one just down by there. There we go, if I just lean him over. There's the little frill around the stem. And the flesh, as you would have seen if you've bought them in the shops and cut them, is white, and it bruises faintly. So if you squeeze it, it would bruise faintly to become like a pinkish colour, particularly just above the gills. And the smell of field mushrooms is really quite pleasant, and it's actually described as sort of mushroomy. And the gills, on the underside of there, the gills would be a pinkish colour, and then they darken to brown. Now, I am going to lift this one out so you can see that. Look at that. And the stem actually curves slightly at the bottom generally. So under there, bring it into the light. I wonder if we bring it into the light. You can see just how pink those gills are. And then the older one, if I pick the older one here, look at that. They turn to this beautiful dark brown. Now, we've spoken about spore prints in the past, and if I left this overnight that way down, so the gills were facing down, those gills would leave spore print on the paper, and the spore print is like a brownish colour, you can imagine, coming from there. So field mushrooms aren't just enjoyed by people, they're also enjoyed by slugs and lots of other insects and creatures that will feed on them. And you can just see on the edge of that one there where it started to be eaten. And there is a bit of lore around, and myths and lore around mushrooms, and it's mostly to do with actually how they grow, because they can grow in these big sort of circular sort of patches, and known as fairy rings, and it's believed to be caused by the fairies or the elves dancing in a circle. And they say that if humans joined, they would be made to dance until they pass out from exhaustion. Now, at this time of year, I was just walking out this morning, and there's an absolutely fantastic fairy ring a little way away from here. And all of the mushrooms, actually, they are field mushrooms, are a lot older than this. They've sort of all gone over a bit and they've curled up and they're sort of starting to die away. But it's amazing to see that it forms a ring that would be sort of, I bet it's 3 meters in diameter. It's really big. Okay, so people are generally very nervous of fungi and mushroom because they can be so deadly, and it's also very true about field mushrooms. Now, there is a risk of misidentification, so even though you might think you know what you've got, sometimes you haven't, and actually there's been cases of experienced foragers, so people who go out searching for wild foods, accidentally picking the wrong type of mushroom. So they've been out picking field mushrooms and have ended up putting, in fact, it was a young death cap into their collection, and then dying from eating it, because these things can be very unforgiving. If you do pick the wrong things, it can make you very, very sick or actually kill you. Now, field mushrooms like this can be confused. The most common one it can be confused with is the yellow stainer, or Agaricus xanthodermus, which looks really similar, but as it suggests, I mean, this, well, like I say, will bruise a sort of pinkish colour. The yellow stainer will stain like yellow. But it also can be confused with two deadly poisonous ones, and deadly being absolutely right, it can kill you, and that's the Agaricus muscaria and the Agaricus pantherina. So, like I suggested, I personally wouldn't advise you to go and pick any. I wouldn't advise you to certainly not eat any, and if you have touched them, then you need to wash your hands. Now, I can identify these because my dad taught me when I was younger. So field mushrooms in particular, I feel quite confident with, but there is lots and lots and lots of other fungus that I really am not sure of. And in fact, I found one yesterday that I thought was a particular type of fungus, and I sent it to a friend who advised me that no, it absolutely wasn't what I thought it was. So, so the best thing is to enjoy looking at them, but don't be tempted to pick, and certainly not eat them. So there we go, field mushrooms. The joy of going out and finding a fairy ring or any type of fungus is just great, but to find field mushrooms is brilliant. In the olden days, and now, people would go out and forage and find them as part of their diet, as part of their food, and it would be a great time of year. People would look forward to this time of year to go out and find mushrooms. But, like I said, they can easily be confused with things that can really make you sick and kill you. So it's better to just go out and enjoy them by looking at them, and don't be tempted to pick them. So there we go. Go out and see if you can find them, and good luck. After talking about doing spore prints, I couldn't resist. So here is a freshly picked field mushroom, and what we're going to do, we're just going to break the stalk out of it. The stem, there we go. Look at that. And what we're going to do, we're just going to put this face down onto the paper, and then the spores will hopefully come out of those gills overnight, and then onto the paper. Got a little piece of white paper there. Hopefully that will end up giving us a nice clear spore print. So I'll leave that down like that, and then we'll return to that in the morning and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so we've left the mushroom overnight, and we're going to just take it off there and turn it over and see. Oh, look at that. How fantastic. So if I turn the mushroom back over, you can see how that's turned out. So that's just left for about 10 hours overnight, and you can see how all the spores have come out of the gills and left a perfect spore print. So you can perhaps give that a go.